All right, guys, so today we're going to be talking about curve fitting. So essentially what that means is we're trying to find an exponential that goes through 2 points. All right, so to get kind of an idea, let's recall from Algebra 1 how we find an equation of a line between 2 points. So if you remember, the equation of a line is y equals mx plus b. All right, so we have these 2 points here. So what I need to find first is the slope, which is the m. Okay, to find the slope of 2 points, I take the difference in y. So if I take -3 minus 5, and then over the difference in y value, so 1 minus a -1, I'm going to get -8 over, let's see, 1 minus a -1, that's really plus 1, so this is 2, and that equals -4. Okay, so right now I have y equals -4x plus b. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is now I have this y and this x here, and I need to solve for b. So what I do is I take x and y, I take that from one of my points. It doesn't matter which one I choose, but either one will work. So I'm going to sub that in. So -3 in for y, -4, and then 1 in for x plus b. So I get -3 equals -4 plus b. Then just regular solving, I add 4, I get 1 equals b. All right, so I've solved for everything that I need to solve for. My final answer would be y equals -4x plus 1. Okay, that would be the line that goes through these 2 points. All right, so again, like I said, we're going to be talking about curve fitting today. So by the end of this video, you should be able to find the exponential through 2 points. All right, so let's just get... All right, so we have these 2 points, and we're trying to find an exponential that goes between them. So if you imagine, we're going to be using the equation y equals a times b to the x. All right, so the very first thing I should always figure out is my multiplier. I need to figure out what b is. So think about this. I have a point, so let me just make a table here. Okay, I have a point 216. These are my x values, these are my y values, and a point 256. Now, b is what is being multiplied to get to each new step. Okay, so if you imagine, to get from 16 to 256, I'm multiplying by b 4 times. Okay, so once to get from 2 to 3, another time to get from 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6. That's 4 total times. So in other words, 16 times b times b times b times b equals 256. All right, well, I can simplify that a little bit. What's b times itself 4 times? That would be 16b to the 4th equals 256. Now that we've done stuff with exponents and solving, you should be able to solve this pretty easily. What you're going to do is you're going to divide by 16. And then 256 divided by 16 is going to give you 16, in fact. Okay, and then all you need to do next, how do you undo a 4th power? Okay, so if you remember when we talked about fractional exponent and roots, you're actually going to do to a 4th root. All right, so the question is, how do I figure out what the 4th root of 16 is? Well, in your little calculator, what you're going to do, we're going to remember that the 4th root of something is the same as raising that to the 1/4 power. So in your calculator, you're going to press 16 caret to the 1 divided by 4 and make sure your 1 divided by 4 is in parentheses. And once you do that, you get that b equals 2. Okay, so I'm going to just double check that that works. So 16 times 2 is 32. 32 times 2 is 64. 64 times 2 is 128, and in fact 128 times 2 gets me to 256. All right, so now I have this part. So right now I've solved for b, so I have a times 2 to the x. Okay, I need to figure out a now. So if you imagine, all I have to do is I just have to go backwards. Okay, so go backwards this way. And if I'm multiplying going down the table, to go up the table, I'm just going to divide. So 16 divided by 2 is 8, and then 8 divided by 2 is 4. So the equation that goes through these 2 points is 4 times 2 to the x. Okay, and that is a common theme through all of these. Okay, you're just going to figure out how many times you need to multiply b to find your multiplier, and then you're going to work backwards to find your original value or your a value. All right, so let's do another example. Okay, so again, if you imagine I have x and I have y, I have -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and let's see, I have -2, and I don't know that one, -162. All right, so again, -2 times b goes there, times b again, times b a third time, and times b a fourth time to get from -1 to 3. Okay, so y equals a times b to the x. I know that -2 times b times b times b times b equals -162. And if you imagine, that's -2 b to the fourth equals -162. And if I divide these both by 2, I get b to the fourth equals, what is that, 81? And that's a -2, sorry about that. Okay, and then I take the fourth root of both sides to cancel out this fourth power. B equals 81 to the 1/4 power. Remember that the fourth root is the same thing as to the 1/4 power. And if you type that into your calculator, you get that b equals 3. So if you imagine, -2 times 3 is -6. -6 times 3 is -18. -18 times 3 is -54. And -54 times 3 is -162. So we know that it works. So if you imagine y equals a, and we'll talk about that here in a second, but it's times 3 to the x. All right, so remember a is going to be when x is 0. That's my initial value. So this is going to be -6 times 3 to the x. All right, last example, and then I'll let you go. So let's again look at my table, and I get -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Again, I'm starting at -2 just because that's the point they give me, ending at 2 because that's the point they give me. So 28, and then 2 is 1.75. All right, so again, times b, times b, times b, and times b. Okay, this is another fourth example. Now, not all of them are always going to be to the fourth power. Sometimes I'm only going to have 3 steps in between or 2 steps in between. And so you'll have to adjust your b values accordingly. So we have 28 times b to the fourth equals 1.75. All right, so then I'm just going to go divide by 28, divide by 28. I get b to the fourth equals, all right, I'm going to need a calculator for this, so 1 second. I get 1.75 divided by 28, and I get 0.0625. All right, just like last time, I'm going to take the fourth root. Okay, make sure that if this would have been to the third, that you would take a cube root or a third root. So that's 0.0625 to the 1/4 power. And so if I do that to the 1/4, I get b equals 0.5, or in other words, 1/2. All right, so I figured out y equals a times 0.5 to the x. And if you imagine, if I just keep going, 28 times a half, or divided by 2, is 14. Okay, half of 14 is 7. Half of 7 is 3.5. Half of 3.5 is 1.75. So I know that it worked. All right, so then I use x equals 0 to give me my other point. So this is going to be y equals 7 times 0.5 to the x. That would be my final equation. And that is all you do for curve fitting. Okay, so now you should be able to complete the practice. As always, thanks for listening. If you have any questions, let me know.